What to do, fellas? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going into project number 3 in the How to Get Started with the Arduino series. So in this project we're going to be building a temperature reader using of course the Arduino board, but also some other electronic components. So let's just get into it. Right, so for this project we're going to need of course an Arduino board or the board of your choice, the breadboard. We're going to be needing 3 LEDs. They don't have to be red. I've just picked red since those are the one I have. We need 3 220 ohm resistors, a temperature sensor. This is known for having, you can't see it here, but it says TMP in the sensor here, and it also has 3 pins. Then at last we also need a variety of jumper wires. So let's just get into building it. At first, we'll start by connecting the 5 volts and the ground to the breadboard. Next, we'll plug in the LEDs. Remember that the short leg of the LED is the cathode, which is the one we need to connect to the ground, and the long leg called the anode, which is the pin we need to connect to the power. So we'll just plug these 3 in. There we go. Since we need to control the flow of the power from the LED or from the Arduino to the LEDs manually, we need to connect the pins to the LEDs to control the flow of power. The pin most to the right will have pin number 2, and then number 3 to the middle, and number 4 to the one to the left. And remember, this needs to be connected to the long leg of the LED. There we go. Now we also need to connect the LEDs to the ground, where we'll take the 220 ohm resistors and take the short pin from the LEDs and connect it to the ground of the minus on the breadboard. So now that we've connected the LEDs, we also need to connect the temperature sensor. Each of the pins need to go into their own slot on the breadboard. There we go. There we go. Then we need to connect the left pin, from my point of view, to the power. There we go. There we go. And we need to connect the right pin to the ground. There we go. And at last, we need to connect the middle pin, which is the where the temperature will be read, to the analog pin number 0. You see here, we haven't used these before. Analog pin A0, it says. So we just connect the A0 to the middle pin on the temperature. There we go. Now that we've built the circuit, we need to go into the Arduino IDE and actually build the code to run this circuit. Alright, now that we've gotten into the Arduino IDE, we need to declare 2 constants. Constants are like variables which we used in the last video, in which we can uniquely name things into the program. However, unlike variables, constants cannot be changed later in the program after we've declared them in the start. The 2 constants that we need to declare at the start are the sensor temperature pin for the temperature sensor, which we used the analog input pin number 0 for, aka A0, and the next is the baseline temperature for the temperature sensor as well, which we will use later in the program. Next up in the setup function, we will set up a connection to the serial monitor where we'll see the results from the temperature sensor later in the program. We will do this with the serial.begin function. Next up in the setup function, we'll use a for loop to determine the pin mode for each LED pin and also set the digital write, aka if the LED should be turned on or off, to low, which is the correlation to off. So the for loop runs by taking in three statements. First, the initial statement, then the condition, and then how much the loop should increase by every time it runs. In our case, the initial statement is pin number equals to 2, since the first pin we used for the LED was pin number 2. Next, the condition is when the loop should stop. So since we only used pin 2, 3, 4, we need to stop it when the pin number reaches below 5, or anything values below 5. Next, since we need the value for pin number 2, 3, and 4, we need the loop to increase by 1 every time so that we can get the value for each pin correctly. Next up in the loop function, we'll start by declaring a variable to hold the temperature sensor's value, which we will set equal to the analog read.sensor pin, which was the pin we used for the temperature sensor. To view the data in our serial monitor later in the project, we will need to use the serial.print function to input the data we want into the serial monitor. To determine the temperature of the temperature sensor, we also need to find how many volts are going through the sensor. To do this, we need to make a new variable called voltage and set it equal to sensor val divided by 1024 times 5. To determine the temperature of the temperature sensor, we need to declare a new variable again called temperature. We need to set this equal to voltage minus 0.5 times 100 to find the true temperature in Celsius degrees for the project. Next up in the loop function, we'll use an if function to determine which of the LEDs should turn on based on how many degrees the temperature sensor is. First off, we'll check if the temperature of the temperature sensor is below the baseline temp plus 2, which we set at 20. If this is true, then we'll set all of the LEDs to low, aka off. Then we'll use an else if statement to check if the temperature is above 22, which was the baseline plus 2, and 24 degrees. Then if it's over 24 and under 26, and then at last, if it's over 26, we will turn all of the LEDs on. At last, we'll input a small delay to make sure that the loop function does not run all the time, so the data that we've put into the serial monitor can catch up. So, now that we've actually built the code, we need, as we did in the last video, to upload the code to the Arduino board. To do that, we need again the USB 2.0 cable. We plug it into the computer. There we go. And into the Arduino board. There we go. Then we need to go into the top here. We see it says COM3 Arduino Uno. That is my board. Okay. And we just click the upload button. It'll just take a few seconds. There we go. Done uploading. So now that we can see we actually have uploaded the code. See up here in the Arduino board. Just check this up here. To actually see what the temperature is saying, we need to go up to the top right here into the serial monitor. There we go. There we go. Now we can see the current degrees and how much it says. So we see the sensor value is around 155, the volts is around 0.76, and the temperature is around 25 degrees. Now, if I actually take my hand and go above the temperature sensor here, you can see the degrees rise to about 31 degrees. Here, if I take it off again, they should go back to around 25, which will just take a few seconds. There you go. Now we can see that the LEDs are actually turning on all the time when it also said this. So to change this, we can just change the baseline temp. So here we're just try and increase it to maybe 23 degrees. Let's just see here. We'll take the board again, we'll upload this one more time. There we go. And also done uploading. And we see here, it's only the first LED that's turning on right now. Let's just try and take my hand on again. And we can see now that the LEDs are now also turning on. So to give us a little bit more room to play with. It takes a little bit of adjustment to actually get the LEDs right. So, you've built your first temperature sensor reader. So, there's not really much more into this project. So, why don't we just go into the next?